The first snowfall in Ohio came a few days ago, so I'm getting in the holiday spirit. I don't know about you guys. Welcome, one and all. We're back. It's Cookie Pocket, your favorite podcast featuring Zach, Christian, and Mitchell. And today we're discussing Moonstruck, I guess classic romantic comedy starring Cher and Nicolas Cage. And it's one that did not accord to my expectations for it necessarily. So I was really looking forward to this discussion to see if I was crazy or to see if I was just in a bad mood because, full disclosure, I am in final season and all the work is just like an uphill sprint for the next 2 weeks. So I'm definitely a little mentally occupied. Mm-hmm. And that may have affected my viewing experience. But as always, I'm excited to refer to your experiences as well. So with that out of the way, what did you two make of Moonstruck?
Well, happy holidays, viewers. Welcome to our first holiday special of the season. I think I had a similarly muted reaction to Moonstruck. Maybe I'm not really sure what I expected it to be because I didn't know much about Moonstruck going in other than that it was a Nicolas Cage film, and it's one that he talks about in a lot of interviews about his career, specifically the moment when Cher's character first meets Johnny in the bakery, and he's talking about Ronnie, I guess he's Ronnie. I lost my hand, I lost my bride. And Nicolas Cage likes to talk about that in interviews, and he says that moment where he points at his false hand was inspired by Metropolis. There's a moment in that where the mad scientist points to his own fake hand, and he went, and I wanted to embody that in the character of Ronnie. So seeing that moment alone, I thought it was this bombastic tragedy or something like that, and I don't really think it is at all. I described this as quite a cozy family movie. There's definitely conflict, and I think it sort of resembles a Shakespearean comedy in some ways, in that there's lots of kind of individual little romantic conflicts, and then everything wraps up in a pretty little bow at the end with a nice family meal. And I enjoyed kind of stepping into that atmosphere, the feeling of New York in 1987, these absolute palaces that these people live in compared to New York now. But it really did end up just being a 3 out of 5 for me. I think the actual events of the story were not especially exciting to me. I mentioned in my Letterboxd review that the big kind of conflict between Cher is engaged to be married to one man and then falls in love with his brother. Oh, what will they do? I didn't feel a great sense of attachment to either of those romances, so I didn't really feel that push and pull. But I do, that the atmosphere, I think, is wonderful. It's got this light holiday vibe that really fits, I think, the feeling of the time that we're recording this episode. I think it's kind of just up to you whether you think that's enough to make your viewing worthwhile.
Mm-hmm. 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 So, I saw a Letterboxd review that was so funny. Cher gave up Wario for Waluigi, and I couldn't get that out of my head.
You know what I literally just recognized?
What?
Her dad is a plumber.
Oh
my God.
It's just like the Super Mario movie. Oh my God. We got the sequel we didn't realize we wanted. That's crazy.
Mario, the next generation.
Oh my God. Yeah. So overall, it's kind of stupid.
Oh my goodness.
I felt like so I'm gonna say I usually, if I think something's like too into itself as a comedy, and I feel like it's like SNL skits. It's like my number one criticism of comedies. I feel like I don't feel like this was an SNL type thing.
Okay.
This felt like it was really trying to take itself seriously as a romantic comedy, if that makes sense. I feel like it was like structuring itself in that way,
Mm-hmm.
where there's supposed to be continuity and there's supposed to be at least enough characterization for you to hook on to, so that you wouldn't just have a surface level enjoyment. And I feel like that pretty much crashed and burned within the first 20 minutes for me.
Mm.
I feel like it was very hard to invest in anything. And I think one of the most recognizably great things for me was the cinematography, for sure. I think there's a lot of really well placed, nice. You mentioned cozy, Zach. I feel like cozy is a very great, apt description of pretty much the whole atmosphere. There was a good. It felt somewhat immersive in that way. But besides the colors and the movie poster and the 50 million shots of the moon, I was not very invested in this.
Hmm.
And I feel like I'm not sure how much of that was really the point. I mean, I feel like it was supposed to be kind of a late 80s quirkiness almost.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're supposed to be invested in kind of like the stereotypical Italian American bluntness and oh, he's married, I'm not married, then you're cheating on me, I don't care, it's okay, and then we're together and you're marrying your brother now, and it's just like bippity boppity. That's like the entire time. And it's very consistent. Like there is continuity there, but there's zero things to like emotionally latch onto. It's goofy, and I wouldn't go as far as to say it's like a family film.
Hmm.
I mean, it's actually kind of hard. And now that I mention it, I feel like it's hard to point out or pin down like what the actual target audience is,
Mm-hmm.
and what it's really going for in terms of some type of genre. And I just it was a little cringy at times, but there were some funny moments. I feel like it did, like the last 20 minutes were probably better than the rest of the film, to be honest with you, just because I felt like there's almost no build up. And the opera scene felt like we were sort of built up to it and then not really, and it didn't amount to anything. So I was like, well, that now I don't care anymore. So that happened a lot, whereas like I was about to be invested and then it went on to the next scene for pretty much no reason. And there's just another thing that happens. Another family member destroys my eardrums with the buzzing of the of the doorbell.
Oh yeah. It's kind of weird that I do think there are like moments that are definite kind of classic comedic beats where Cher and Nicolas Cage go to the opera and her dad and his mistress are also there. And there's clearly set up for like, well, we're going to have to avoid each other and they're going to narrowly miss each other. And that doesn't really happen. And similarly, the big dinner scene at the end, or I guess it's actually a family breakfast, where everybody's ringing the doorbell and coming in. That's a moment that kind of feels like it should be this like everything's piling on top of the other. The doorbell keeps ringing and there's dogs barking and chaos, and that doesn't really happen either. So there are these kind of classic comedic beats for this kind of movie, but they aren't really directed to be funny. They're kind of directed with this sort of laid back laziness, and I don't say that in like in a chiding way. I don't think that it's negligent. I do think that this movie is the movie that Norman Jewison wanted to make, but a comparison that comes to mind, which might earn some ire from people who enjoy this movie, is it kind of reminds me of Mamma Mia, where it's a movie about young people in love, I think, and the humor, I think, is meant to be derived from moments that are sweet rather than laugh out loud funny. A lot more of the laughter in this came from moments where I thought, oh, isn't that kind of cute or witty, rather than, oh my goodness, isn't this a funny predicament, which we've seen in some other comedies on the show in the past.
Mm-hmm. I think that Mamma Mia touch point is a good one. It certainly, Mamma Mia certainly has its critics, and there are things you can say about that film, but I don't know if anyone has seriously suggested that Mamma Mia is a boring film.
Mm-hmm.
Not just because of the music, but because of the sheer energy of all of it. And I'm hesitant to use the label boring on anything we talk about here because it feels reductive and kind of difficult to describe.
Mm-hmm.
But I did find Moonstruck a little bit boring, if I'm being honest. I like so much of it on paper. I'm generally a big fan of romantic comedies. Certainly, Academy Award winning romantic comedies
Yeah.
with stars that I love. Obviously, Nicolas Cage is coming off of Peggy Sue Got Married when he came onto this. I talked about that a few weekend reviews ago, and I love him in that film. And I do think he's fun here, and I think Cher is pretty great too. I think her sort of facial expressiveness and her not abrupt, but I guess sort of down to earth delivery of her lines really suits the character. I think there's just not quite enough on the page, and I wonder how much our shared perspective of it comes from our being men. I know it might sound silly, being that this film was written by a man and also directed by a man, but at least the people I follow on Letterboxd, or a lot of the acclaim, seems to be more across the gender aisle, as it were. And I do think the sort of effectiveness of Cher's character being this 37-year-old woman who's been unlucky in love and thinks her old marriage was cursed and is just kind of trying to get something to work out and to not live a lonely life. I think that's a refreshing theme and a realistic one in America and probably anywhere. And I think it probably just didn't come together enough for me. And a lot of that, I think, depends on pivotal moments and what Zach was saying about these two romances with Cage and Danny Aiello, neither of them seeming to carry a ton of weight. But I wanted to pivot back to what Zach said about the tone of the movie. I watched this on the Criterion Blu-ray, which I kind of regret purchasing now because it didn't really meet the mark for me. It was a 2.5 for me, by the way. I don't know if I said that. I wrestled with the 3, but there was an archival special feature about the soundtrack of the film and the score of the film. And I can't even remember who was talking. I think it was Norman Jewison and maybe a couple others directly involved with the movie. But they basically said that they had screened the film and that it wasn't working and that nobody was laughing, and that it wasn't totally landing. And their solution in this 6-minute special feature was to make the soundtrack and score very obviously evocative of this sort of Italian-American bounciness. And obviously, all of us having seen it now, we know that That's Amore is pasted all over this thing.
Yeah.
So do you guys think that was to the detriment of the film and its comedy, or do you think that's what sort of makes it work other than being boring?
I didn't really see that complementing the comedy that much. Now I'm going to sound like a total cultural outsider here making snap judgments. But my girlfriend who guested on the show last season is Italian American. On a lot of our dates where we cook or we have dinner, we've gone to these little Italian restaurants together, little Italian corner stores. And in those places, you hear That's Amore and this kind of bouncy Italian music a lot. Maybe because people are playing to the stereotype for the benefit of their customers. I don't know. But to me, it didn't really feel that out of place. I didn't find myself thinking, oh, isn't it funny? Haha, Italiano. To me, it just felt like an aspect of kind of the little Italy community that we were in. Yeah, I mean, I know there's kind of the stereotype of the 80s kind of through early 2000s comedy incidental music, the sort of doo-dee-doo-dee-doo that you hear in a lot of just scenes of Leslie Nielsen walking around in an 80s movie, and that's meant to make it funny. And I didn't really get that sense from this. This at least felt like it was taking itself a little more seriously, maybe on accident. I don't know. But yeah, I didn't really get that impression.
Well, my girlfriend is not Italian American. And I'll also say I was not bippitied by the boppities. And I think the music was very, very poorly integrated. It's like when you open Spotify or turn on the radio and then the volume gets really loud and you blow your eardrums out. You're like, oh, I got to turn that down. Yeah. And then it goes to the next scene as they're turning it down. I think so. As a comedy, it works a little bit better. I feel like there are definitely some moments of symbolism and important themes. I know Christian mentioned the gender thing. I do think that the single point of subtlety that really did come across to me was the empowerment in a very traditional family mindset. When it comes to Cher kind of doing her own thing, going to the hairdresser, like, screw it, I'm going to do what I want to do. And she really goes through a lot of effort to make herself look beautiful. And it really comes across and works out for her in that way. And obviously she gets to be who she really wants to be with. And she's just acting in the moment and gets what she wants. And that's a very empowering thing. Separate from that, I'll say that the music does not lend itself to those types of themes at all. I think it makes me not want to take anything seriously, and it makes me think that the main goal of the scene is for me to kind of just think, oh, that was so funny, throw it away kind of scene. Pretty much the feeling I got is like, I just want to just like rip off my shirt and just run away into the sunset. That's like every single scene ends in that same way. It's like there's like some type of conclusion kind of feel to everything. Like we're supposed to be satisfied. Like there's never a moment where there's ebbs and flows. It's kind of just like that's over, all right, and then that's over, and then that's over, and then it's over, and we win, and that's it. And maybe what you mentioned, Zach, about it being like culturally accurate might be like the point. Like that might be the immersion right there, is that the story's theme is actually kind of paces itself the same way that the family acts and the way that they, are characterized. And they do feel like different characters. They do feel like different people. And I wasn't having that much trouble like determining who was who. And it was a short film, so it wasn't like there's some lunar cinematic universe I'm trying to like piece together all these different Italian people that look the same or something. Like it was all very easy for me to keep track of. But to go back to roundabout to the question, the music did not work for me very much. Although the main theme, that actual song, was a solid theme. It was very obvious, and it was a good choice of song for me, I think.
I did think it really worked whenever they evoked the opera, though. I think maybe one of the strongest moments of setup and payoff in the whole film, maybe because it's the only overt moment of setup and payoff in the whole film that I can remember, at least, is during the opera. Cher's character is moved to tears by the moment where our heroine takes the hand of the man that she's in love with, and then later when she and Ronnie go home, she takes his hand in a very similar fashion as the operatic music swells. And I found that a very effective moment that definitely takes itself a little more seriously than the mild strings of That's Amore coming in for a moment as Cher walks across the street in a scene that was a little too quiet beforehand.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the music swells, Mitchell. I was worried it was just me, but it seemed like the mix on this is like the music is maxed out and then the dialogue is like 20%.
Yeah.
And it's funny that you mentioned the cinematography early on, because I looked up the cinematographer David Watkin, and the only other film of his that I've seen is Help, the chaotic second Beatles film, which is not what I would have guessed at all. But I guess I should mention that my mother's side of the family is Italian American, so I guess that qualifies me or does.
I hate to bring it to you guys.
We're all pulling our credentials out of our wallets right now.
Yes. I'm allowed to say certain things now. Also, I'm still... I was going to say this for the end of the episode, but it's just bugging me. I'm absolutely gobsmacked that we're reviewing a romantic comedy and Zach has given it the highest score of the three of us. I don't think that's ever happened before. That's a shocker to me. But I think the opera is hugely important and kind of what makes this, for me, as opposed to being something that doesn't work, being something that's more of just a shrug that I kind of will give a pass to if not quite enjoy it. And I really dislike criticizing this so much, because I do feel like if it's not necessarily a family film for the kiddos because of its like sexual situations and its themes and characters obviously being in kind of later adulthood, really, I I still think it's the type of movie that I could watch with my parents and grandparents that we would all kind of enjoy parts of, at least. And I think that's a setting where I would have enjoyed this more in theory. If something like this were in theaters and my whole family wanted to go see it, I would welcome that. So I think that maybe explains its success with the Academy Awards and other things. But I think the characters just lack distinction in a lot of places. I think it doesn't take a lot to give you something to cling to a character. I think if we were to just like go through a Rolodex of famous movie protagonists or characters and describe them, you might have 3 to 5 defining traits about them, but you probably couldn't write an essay about them based on the movie they're in. I still think this film comes a little short for me. Even with Nicolas Cage, his sort of his love for the opera, I think, is interesting. It's something you don't necessarily expect from, I guess, a working class guy who's physically disabled and lives alone, and so that's interesting. But I think maybe it doesn't work as well as it could have, coming sort of after he and Cher very quickly become enamored with each other and just kind of start making out after their first conversation. But does that lightning strike of a moment work for you guys when they're just talking and then he sweeps her away?
I think it kind of works for me for Ronnie in hindsight. I still don't know if I really buy it from Cher. Even if I buy that moment, I don't know if I buy her being convinced of like, oh, well, I guess he's the one. Because this whole thing, I think, takes place over maybe like 3 days, if even that. But I do think that Ronnie, what we see of him, he's a man who views his life kind of like an opera, and I think he sees himself kind of as the grand protagonist of this operatic tale. I mean, he works in a bakery, but he treats his job and himself like he slaves away in the bowels of hell. Like he does not need to be nearly as dramatic as he is about his own life, but I think he sees himself as this grand kind of tortured Don type role that he plays within his own life, which I think kind of ties into, maybe in a different way, but the way that Cher's character describes him, of like you're a wolf that's chewed off your own foot, kind of to punish yourself and distance yourself without realizing it. I think maybe he does realize it. He just thinks of it in much more grand artistic terms than everybody else.
It comes across more as, which is kind of a weird comparison, but it comes across as more of a soldier, like randomly coming across like a lady in a foreign land, and they only needed one conversation to be enamored because they're both incredibly horny and lonely. So that's the reason why they get together. And that's why we'll guess maybe 20 to 30% of Europe's population is because of that now. That's probably more than that. I'll be less generous, but regardless, that's the feeling that I got. And I do think it was purposeful. I feel as though it was very much directed in that way, and that kind of goes back to the themes I started to lay out when it comes to like the bluntness and the lack of a real emotional ebb and flow, more of like a zigzag. And I feel like this is pretty much just prime zigzagginess. And I'll definitely agree with Zach. It makes a lot more sense for Ronnie than it does for Cher. And I feel like when we first get introduced to Cher and she's with Johnny, she seems very like dependent on, this is how things need to be, like you need to kneel down and stuff. And he's kind of she's making a whole like controlling scene about it, like showing that she wants this to be a certain way and wants him, if he's going to do this, then he does it this way type of mentality. And I do feel like once she kind of gets all dolled up and stuff, that's kind of her character progression, although it's very, very minor and takes like 0 time to happen. That's when she starts to break out of her shell and wants to do what she really wants to do. But when she's between that time is when they actually have that moment together. And it really, for her character, that really doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And it never really comes to fruition, like her purpose for doing that, or she doesn't need to explain to anybody that why she's really into him or anything. I'm not saying that. like it's perfectly fine for her to be completely enamored by him and they want to be together. I feel like that's part of the main theme of the movie anyway. But I also feel like there has to be at least some type of understanding from the audience as to why she's pursuing him. Like we have to have something, like we have to have some indication that she really feels for him in this way, and that they had this passionate moment for a reason. And there's just no time. Like the film is just super short. It feels very brisk, and although it feels purposeful, it's not effectual for me at all, really.
I think the early stuff with her, the way that she treats Johnny when he proposes, I think that's all meant to establish kind of her. Maybe she doesn't want to be that way, but I think she's paranoid about future romances and marriage because of how poorly her last one went. So she wants to kind of do everything right for luck. And I think that her kind of whirlwind romance with Ronnie is meant to represent her kind of shrugging off that fear and just going with it. But there's no real moment where we kind of see her struggle with that and then decide. And if there is, I think it's kind of played as a gag, so we don't really realize the significance of that until later, until we're thinking about the movie. Because I think the moment where she decides, like, okay, I guess it's going to happen, is when Ronnie carries her to the bed and she goes, all right, I don't care anymore. Take me to the bed. And at least while watching it, I thought like, oh, okay, so that's a funny line. But I think there is meant to be more kind of weighty significance to that moment that is just not really lent by the way the moment's directed and edited. But I mean, maybe the movie's just trying to be light and fluffy and stumbled into being this Academy Award winning thing. I'm not sure.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's plausible. And I think an extension of that, I wonder how much they were depending on Johnny being maybe more unlikable than he is for us to accept Ronnie's quick engagement to Cher. And I know in that opening scene, of course, Johnny doesn't have a ring. He doesn't want to get down on one knee. But I think Danny Aiello is such a sympathetic performer that even in these sort of obvious romantic lapses or personal lapses, to me at least, they tend to evoke more pity or sympathy than his character, than active dislike. Yeah. And I think that's maybe to the detriment of the romantic conflict.
He's kind of a lovable oaf. And like later in the movie, I think they do lean into that. Like when we see him crying over his mother's illness, I do think we're meant to kind of feel some sympathy for him there. Like I don't think he's cast as this villain. But yeah, it's strange that they spend the whole movie kind of tap dancing around like, what's going to happen when Johnny gets home? When Johnny has never given any indication that he'll be anything other than maybe mildly upset and then move on with his life.
Yeah, and even when it does happen, he's not actually that upset.
Yeah.
He doesn't really want to marry her that much. He's just upset that she's going back on her word, so to speak.
Tear off shirt, run into sunset. That's what I'm saying.
And even the sort of, I guess the sort of crown jewel of the whole like feel good family angle of this is after things are all decided, one of the old guys, I don't even remember which one, turns to Johnny and is like, "Hey, you're part of the family. Come drink the bubbly with us."
Yeah.
and that's, I mean, it's a nice moment, but I think it sort of underlines this disconnect between what was written and how it plays out. That's about all I have for this. I think it's a pretty short movie. I hate to dog on it too much because it is cute in moments. I liked the confessional scene when Cher goes into to confess her sins, and she slips the whole slept with her fiance's brother in between the two relatively inconsequential sins. I found that very funny. That's one of the few moments, maybe the only moment, that made me chuckle or laugh.
That is a sin.
Yeah. And I guess I also want to give like a small amount of flowers to Olympia Dukakis for, I guess, trying to bring some dramatic gravitas to her role, and John Mahoney, who I mainly know from Say Anything, for being playing Diane Court's father in that. I think his character is sort of an interesting bit of writing. This older man that's going on dates with younger women and is kind of I don't know, addicted to dating and doesn't really hasn't really grown into adult life. I think that's an interesting angle. I don't think they really do anything interesting with it, but I think it at least gives him and Dukakis a couple of nice acting moments.
Is he the dad in Frasier?
Yes.
Okay, I thought
my
he
dad,
was.
My dad told me that.
I think a moment that really represents, like you said, Christian, a difference between what's written versus what was filmed is during that big family breakfast scene at the end. Everybody's coming in, the doorbell's constantly ringing, and kind of the climactic like punchline to that is Grandpa is crying after the proposal, and I think it's the dad who's like, "What's wrong?" And Grandpa goes, "I'm confused." And my immediate reaction was like, how? This has happened at a very measured pace, and everything has been explained. And I think if that was shot and directed and edited more like the kind of chaotic Christmas Vacation beat it seems to have been in the script, that gag would have landed more.
Any closing thoughts, Mitchell? No.
I wonder if we'll see a sequel someday.
Oh, geez.
Sunbird.
The style
I don't
Before
think
Midnight with Cher and Cage on their deathbed.
My name is Mitchell. I'm he, him, and I don't think Nick Cage is hot. That's what I'll say. So Letterboxd will ban my account now.
Yeah, I
for not
do
admitting
think
it.
there are a lot of thirst reviews for him.
Yeah.
But I do think a nice visual moment is him in front of that oven. I respect it.
I gotta say, I think that he is kind of a convincing like 80s heartthrob in this. I think kind of the appeal of him at the time for a lot of people was that he's handsome in a different way to a lot of male 80s love interest. Because I think there was kind of a very standardized California beach bod thing going on with most romantic leads in big Hollywood 80s movies, compared to Nick Cage, who looks like a ghoul, but like a handsome ghoul. Like,
a fit ghoul, yes.
Yes.
Harry, who makes bread.
Yes.
Apparently, the studio did not want to cast Cage, and Cher threatened to leave the project if they didn't.
Oh, yeah. I've heard about that.
She loved him so much in Peggy Sue. So, hey, she's got good taste. Do we have time for a week in review?
I think we do.
Reviews on holidays? Okay.
I think we do if we don't have guests. So,
yeah. Let's do it. Who's up first?
All right.
Well, a recent film I watched, not aware at all that it would be a holiday film that I thought ended up actually fitting quite well for the season, was Hannah and Her Sisters, the Woody Allen film from the late 80s. Yes, there's a ton of baggage with Woody Allen, but viewing this film in isolation, I think it's actually quite a good Thanksgiving watch. The film is set between two family Thanksgivings over the course of, I think, 2 years. I think there's a Thanksgiving in the middle as well, which is apparently a structure that Allen borrowed from Fanny and Alexander, the Ingmar Bergman film, which is apparently set during 3 Christmases. I don't know that from experience. I haven't seen that film yet. It's very long. I'll get to it eventually.
Wow, you're going to lose your cinemaphile card for that one.
I will, maybe. Comparatively, Hannah and Her Sisters is quite brief. It's only like 96 minutes. And even though it's not like a Thanksgiving movie, you have those Thanksgiving dinners. You have everybody getting together in kind of their New York apartments for family get-togethers. It's about multiple couples within this same family. So it's quite dramatic in places. It reminded me of Interiors, which is a very serious Woody Allen movie, but it also kind of reminded me of the light comedy of a lot of his stuff as well. Specifically, Woody Allen plays Mia Farrow's character's ex-husband in it. This is pre-breakup. And he has his own entirely like different subplot separate from everybody else, where he's like terrified of various sicknesses, and he attempts to commit suicide and fails, and then starts converting to various different religions. And it's kind of this isolated little like funny Woody Allen movie in the middle of this serious drama. I gave it a 4 out of 5 and really enjoyed it. This past year, I went on like a serious Woody Allen binge for a couple of months during the summer, and I've been kind of hitting back on that this past week or so, watching a couple here and there. And yeah, maybe a good pick for Thanksgiving, for November, for around the time we're recording this next year. Hannah and Her Sisters, I recommend it. And Michael Caine is very good in it. He won Best Supporting Actor for it, and I think Diane Wiest won Best Supporting Actress, which I think are both well-deserved wins.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I saw Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, and that's 6 out of 5 for me. But I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about. Talking about Keanu Reeves.
Ooh.
Talking about John Wick. What a hottie. I was John Wick a couple years ago for Halloween, and that was after I saw the first movie. And then I saw the second and third. I was like, these are pretty good, but hopefully they stop. And they didn't stop. And they made a fourth one. And boy, was there a lot of hype about this. Everyone was telling me to see it. Everybody. And you know what I did? I didn't see it until like a year or something later I saw it. And it was very mid. I'm almost glad. I mean, I would have liked that if I saw it in theaters, but I'm kind of glad I didn't. Just because I could see it for what it really was. It was kind of a cash grab. I'm not going to lie. But obviously, like, you have basically the premise pretty much has unlimited potential when it's entirely based on these very well choreographed action moments. And that is very hard to avoid not praising, because it's definitely like state of the art, where like it's very, very engaging to watch. It always has been, always will be. But I'm gonna be honest, like I wasn't really that majorly interested in the story. Like, I know you don't really have to be, but it was particularly mid this time. To in case anybody else hasn't seen it, so I felt like I was the last one to not see it. But the duel at the end, like on paper, is pretty cool, but in practice it was very, very mellow. Freaking Skarsgård is like, he's like the weakest villain by far. Very, very uninteresting. I can't remember anything about him. And I just, it was just very like kind of disappointing almost. I feel like the end of I believe it was the second one was the one with the what's it called? There's just hordes of guys coming. I think it might have been the third one. I don't remember which one it was. It's been a while, but
Me too.
Regardless, I think the performances were pretty good. Really nothing to complain about on that front. But yeah, it just felt like we're building up to the end of the film. We weren't building up to a climax. And it really felt like we were on a downhill. Like, things, less and less action was happening, less and less interest in the story when you already know what's going to happen at the end. There wasn't really major curveballs being thrown, and the one that was thrown was what you could see from a mile away, and the way that the duel ended. So yeah, I mean, I guess I'm glad that there's going to be a spinoff with Ana de Armas, but like, I don't think it's I don't know. I'm seeing where it's going now. It's getting into cash grabby territory, and I don't appreciate that. But I still think John Wick is cool. And I still think like obviously the action, there was some great like little new action things here and there, and the stairs are terrible. The stairs are the villain of the story, and it's very crazy seeing Keanu get demolished by those stairs, because just falling, everybody knows what it feels like to fall down a little set of stairs. Like, it really messes you up. That man was falling down like it was like an escalator. It almost felt like it kept going, and he was just going down. So yeah, I still recommend people watch it, but it's definitely, I was not as enthralled as the other three films, honestly.
Is that Stellan or Bill Skarsgård?
I think it's Bill.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I saw the third one We saw that in cinemas with a group of friends, I think, Christian, in high school.
Yeah.
And I
It
still
was
haven't
like a
seen any of
weird
the
group
others.
of people that were in our English class that we had never hung out with before and never hung out
Never
with
did again. Yeah. Yeah. I
It was
saw
fun.
that one without having seen any of the others. And they made like a show and they're making another one, aren't they? Like,
Yeah, all I know about is the Ana de Armas thing, and I'm not really excited for a spin-off, but I am excited for a with Ana de Armas. So,
I kind of
gotta keep it
feel
real.
about John Wick the way that a lot of people felt about Death Wish when they were making those movies with Charles Bronson, that like, when is this man going to run out of friends and family for them to kill? It's been 5 movies.
Yeah, John Wick 4 has a spot on my overrated list, and I felt like it was hard to go against it when it first came out because it was just getting universal acclaim.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much of a pearl clutcher you guys think I am these days, but at least watching John Wick 4, it just felt like 2 hours of like the coolest ways of choreographing, shooting, and killing people. And the story is pretty thin in the first 3 films too, but there's still this like revenge or Keanu charm to it. And I think that part that made the first 3 work was just totally out of steam by virtue of it being installment 4 and a cash grab, like Mitchell said.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back a few weeks because I want to talk about something that really kind of knocked my socks off. Something that I don't give very like strong recommendations a ton of the time on Week in Review, but this is one where I genuinely think anybody listening right now should try to see this. I saw The Fall, which got a new 4K restoration.
Okay.
Yes, The Fall, directed by Tarsem. It's a 2006 film starring Lee Pace, and it's got a lot of sort of Princess Bride to it because much of it is him relaying a story to a young girl, and then there's cuts away to that story and the action and those characters. Very Princess Bride-ish, but I honestly like this even more than Princess Bride, and this earned a 5 from me. Tarsem's visual direction is absolutely stunning. Everything is very saturated and colorful and inviting in a way that I guess Wicked is being criticized for not being. I don't know. I still haven't seen it, but it does seem like a trend now to sort of desaturate everything, and this totally does not do that, which I greatly enjoyed. It wears its cinematic influences on its sleeve wonderfully, like Seven Samurai and Wizard of Oz and Buster Keaton and Charlie Chaplin. It really harnesses the power of all of those things. I don't want to give too much away, but the action is great. The cuts between the told story and the sort of real life story with Pace as he's recovering in a hospital, every transition really kind of builds up the suspense for either contrasting story, and you care deeply for these characters. As the film goes on, you that just grows, and there's a child actress, Katinka Untaru, is playing opposite Lee Pace, and as far as I can tell, she hasn't been in any other movies, but she is just like absolutely hilarious and adorable in this, and every little interaction she has with Pace is great. They have awesome chemistry. This is basically like a perfect hero's journey, and it struck me as a genuine populist triumph, like a 21st century Seven Samurai. I really don't say that lightly. And coming out of it, I thought, wow, if George Lucas saw this, he must have been feeling really bad about himself because even as a fervent defender of the prequels, this just achieves a level of family entertainment and adventure and heart and hero's journey that I think very few films have. So it's still not available, I think, to rent or stream anywhere, even by purchase. But this restoration happened, and I'm sure it'll get a physical release or something soon. I can't imagine that they would go through all this trouble just for a limited theatrical release. So as soon as it becomes available, I highly, highly recommend watching it.
Yeah, I thought that... Do you know who did the restoration? Was it BFI? Was it Mubi?
It was Mubi,
okay.
Yeah. And the trailer said that Spike Jonze and David Fincher were presenting it, which I think is just a sort of name recognition thing.
Sure. Yeah. I've seen a little bit of The Cell, which was Tarsum's follow-up to The Fall, which a lot of people don't like. And I haven't seen it. I think he only made like 3 or 4 other movies to date. But yeah, I've heard consistently good things about The Fall. So maybe The Cell is just cribbing off of that for like a Seven style thing with lots of Marilyn Manson imagery. But
Oh dear.
welcome to the holiday special, folks.
Hey. Do we do anything else now? It's been so long.
Typically we do the rundown, unless somebody has anybody watched a DVD commentary recently? We talked about doing that as a segment. Has anyone watched a DVD commentary for
season ago, and it still hasn't happened?
Paul Blart Mall Cop 2 or anything like that?
I think we should just have a segment that's 2 hours long. You guys mute your mics, and I talk about Silent Hill remake, because I could literally not stop talking about that.
Mitchell's Soapbox. That'll be what it's called.
Please, God, don't do that.
Don't tempt me with Mall Cop, Zach. I'll freaking do it. I'll find that DVD. I'll buy it for like $2.74 on eBay, and you'll regret it.
No, please go ahead. I think we need more episodes where I get violently angry.
Yeah.
It's been too long.
But yeah, if we don't have any specialty stuff like that, usually we do go on to the rundown. I've locked the Marvelous Cinema Tour in a drawer, and I'm never going back.
Yeah, I almost ate Mitchell's lunch. I thought about just ripping Deadpool and Wolverine, but I decided it wasn't worth my time. So, yeah.
Fair enough.
Rundown. We're doing it. It's a short episode for a short movie that we were all semi-underwhelmed by. Is Zach Ronnie or is he Johnny? We're about to find out.
No.
But it's actually not in the rundown. I don't know why I said that. I guess your performance in the rundown will determine whether you are Ronnie or Johnny, Zach.
Uh-oh.
Ronnie, what have you done with your hair? What have you done?
I said the same thing, and then he just said he was in a new room. So I don't.
Yeah, I have not had a haircut. Yeah.
Yeah. Propaganda. Okay. Mitchell's starting in 3, 2, 1, go.
Red Roses.
3 out of 5.
Kneeling in a good suit.
2 out of 5.
The Moon.
4 out of 5.
A man's pinky ring.
2 out of 5.
Itchy Scalp.
2 out of 5.
Marriage.
3 out of 5.
Big Glass of Vodka.
3 out of 5.
The Confessional.
4 out of 5.
Seeing Wolves and Everyone.
2 out of 5.
John Mahoney fumbling the bag.
3 out of 5.
Big Knife.
4 out of 5.
That's Amore.
4 out of 5.
Bloody Steak to Feed Your Blood.
3 out of 5.
Catholic guilt.
2 out of 5.
Not Worrying About Nothing.
4 out of 5.
Set during the holidays with no explicit reference to the holidays.
3 out of 5.
Opera Date.
4 out of 5.
Horse Santa hat.
4 out of 5.
Italian Lunar Lore.
3 out of 5.
Multiplication tables.
2 out of 5.
Somehow His Mother Returned.
2 out of 5.
Smelling like snow.
3 out of 5.
Oh, 1 second.
Oatmeal.
4 out of 5.
Time.
4 out of 5 for oatmeal. Ooh.
Hey, it's nutritious.
Yeah.
It's a good holiday snack.
Yeah. Was this a Christmas movie, Zach? You tell us.
We didn't ask that. Yeah.
Well, like we discussed during I think my takeaway from the Die Hard episode was that anything can be a Christmas movie if it's a tradition for you. So like I would say this qualifies as a Christmas movie. Like I think I would go so far as to say I think this is a Christmas movie for the masses. Like not like a niche like my family always watches Garfield, A Tale of Two Kitties on Christmas Day. Like I think this is like this is a Christmas movie. I think it's set during Christmas. It's got the decorations. I think there is something very romantic about Christmas and the dates that they go on, and I think it snows at some point, doesn't it?
That sounds right.
Yeah. I would say this qualifies. Impossible. I don't know if this is like a Christmas Day movie or a holiday movie. Like I wouldn't put it under the genre holiday on my streaming service that I run. But
as we call this a holiday special.
Yeah, I do think it works as a Christmas movie. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll say no. I'd say Spider-Man. Spider-Man is more of a Thanksgiving movie than this is a Christmas movie.
Really?
Oh,
wow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I respect it.
Watch
I
me
definitely thought there'd be more going on on the fringes here, but there just wasn't. So.
When I edited the trailer for the holiday specials, which I only finished, a peek behind the curtain, listeners, I only finished the trailer like yesterday morning and posted it then, which is the trailer typically comes out on Thanksgiving. We're recording this day after Thanksgiving. Watching the trailer for the movie, I don't know when this came out, but I wonder if they tried to hide that it was set at Christmas, because I kind of thought it wasn't going to be set at Christmas at all, except for maybe like they were going to have a date at the opera at the end and that would be Christmas or something like that. Because there's no mention of the holidays in any of the marketing. There's no like, at this most romantic time of year, take a look at the moon with Cher or anything like that. So yeah, but that happened a lot in the 80s and 90s where movies set at Christmas came out in like June, and everyone just kind of went, okay, I'll live with it.
Yeah. Who knows? Not me. Who's next? Does Zach go last or does Mitchell go last in these?
I think typically I go last in our rotation, which means that Mitchell will be next with something that definitely is a Christmas movie.
Oh crap! I'm not ready for this. I usually have a bit. You're gonna have to give me a second now.
Okay.
I know it's the Christmas Truce movie, but I'm trying to remember what.
Yeah, it's got the freaking it's got the Inglourious Bastards spy.
Joyeux Noel.
Yeah,
it's Joyeux Noel. Yes, it was a Christian Carrion 2005 film. Daniel Bruhl is also in it. Believe it or not, he makes his return.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So if you don't know about the Christmas Truce of World War I, you're gonna find out, and it was a real thing that really happened. So we'll see how accurate that is, and how much I hate it because it's not accurate.
Oh.
Or how much I love it because it is Christmassy and awesome.
Daniel Bruhl returns. What have we seen him in before?
Something, I don't know.
He's Marvel low effort Baron Zemo, right?
Maybe. Wasn't he in he was in some World War II movie we watched. I'm gonna find it fast enough. Don't worry.
Yeah,
this is a very low effort holiday special.
We're all tired.
Hold on. All right, I give up.
Hearing three old men in a nursing home. Do you remember that young boy? No, the one who was Alfred's son. No, not the one who went to college. The other one.
Okay, he was in All Quiet on the Western Front, which I think at some point, Mitchell, you said might do an episode on that, but I think it ended on the chopping block.
Are you ready? Cloverfield. Nope, never mind. Not Cloverfield. I thought it was 10 Cloverfield.
He was
Lane.
in Paradox, yeah, which we didn't. I think we very briefly talked about in 10 Cloverfield Lane, but we didn't actually watch that on the show.
He's the German version of Cars. He voices German Lightning McQueen in Cars. I'm sure we mentioned that at some point. I'm going to leave it there. I didn't know that.
A movie that
crazy.
We haven't talked about or watched on this show.
All right, Cars is on the docket. We're watching Cars next season.
Okay, all right.
With that, the rundown, Zach ran away a long time ago.
Yeah. Merry Christmas to you and your German cars. To all get that.